It was one of the most heartbreaking injuries to witness last season. Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, Week 5, suffering a compound fracture, going off the field with tears in his eyes. But things appear to be much better, much brighter also for the 27-year-old quarterback heading into next season. The question is, yes, yet again, this is not Groundhog Day. For the second year in a row, what about his contract? The Cowboys have until March 9th to decide if they want to franchise Dak yet again. You see their history of some quarterbacks who've received the tags. The problem is, if they decided to tag him this season, what about next season, where that could jump to a whopping $52 million for Dak? Let's welcome back in Ryan Wilson and Jonathan Jones to do a deep dive into the Cowboys this offseason. And fellas, it starts with Dak Prescott and what on earth the Cowboys are going to do yet again with Dak. JJ, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that they're going to tag him. And I think, listen, it's not a mistake to tag him now. It's that there have been a series of mistakes for the last 2 years. Really, when the Los Angeles Rams went to Jared Goff and gave him his 4-year, $130 million extension, back in September of 2019, the Dallas Cowboys needed to go to Dak Prescott and say, hey, we're going to give you this deal plus $5 million. Sign it right now. You're our guy. And they didn't do that. And they kept playing out the string and hoping that they were going to sign him to that 7-year deal and he was going to be happy to be a Cowboy and that star was going to mean something on the side of his helmet. That's not the way that it works for these dudes nowadays. They want their money. They want to be paid appropriately. And so Dak said, all right, well, then I guess you're going to have to tag me. I want a 3 or 4 year deal so that I can continue to get bites at the apple in free agency. Cowboys didn't want to do it. They don't want to do it. And now they're in a position where set to count $38 million against the cap, Dak Prescott is. They're not going to be able to do anything else in free agency because they get no relief from that cap hit due to it being a guaranteed number via the franchise tag. So this is a mistake not that they are about to make. It is a mistake that is years in the making, unfortunately, for the Dallas Cowboys. And because of that, because Dak Prescott continues to have the leverage, listen, he'll play under the tag, doesn't love it, but he's not going to sign over 6, 7, 8 years of his life to the Cowboys just to make it easier on them. No, they should give him what he wants, and they haven't done it, and now he's going to squeeze him a bit.
That's right, JJ, and it's interesting because rarely is it the case that NFL players have leverage. Franchise quarterbacks have leverage. Dak has leverage. Whether you like it or not, Deshaun Watson has leverage, and you touched on it. This could have been solved 2 years ago, and Jerry Jones could have saved himself $5, $6, $7, $8 million a year had he signed Dak Prescott 2 years ago to maybe a $33 million a year deal, maybe even slightly more than that. Then Russ Wilson came along, got his deal for $35 million a year. Then Deshaun came along, got his for $39 million a year, and we saw Patrick Mahomes get $45 million on average. So Dak Prescott clearly and understandably is going to want to get paid. And you mentioned that he is willing to play the franchise tag. He got injured last year, broke his leg, and he might have to do it again in terms of playing on the franchise tag, and he will do just that. And the silly thing is, and Amanda, you talked about the franchise tag for year 3 going up to $52 million. It'll end up being 70 plus $52 million, $122 million over 3 years of not wasted money because you're getting Dak Prescott, but you could have signed him to a deal cheaper than that and used that money elsewhere. But Jerry Jones is, if nothing else, stubborn, although we do know that he likes Dak Prescott a lot. So it's weird to try to figure out, but trying to figure out the Dallas Cowboys is a weird endeavor in and of itself. So, here we are.
JJ, quick follow and very quickly here. Do they ever come to a long-term deal with Dak? Is he the starting quarterback in 2022?
That's a tough question. There's a lot of hubris that has to be put aside if the Dallas Cowboys are going to do it, because he's not coming off this whole don't sign me for 7 years, sign me to a shorter term deal. That's going to be on the Jones family.
All right, let's move on to the rest of the Cowboys' needs here for the offseason heading into the 2021 season. Ryan Wilson, a lot of Cowboys fans hoping someone like Caleb Farley falls to them at 10 overall. What needs do the Cowboys have?
So we're looking at it right here. It's weird, a lot of defense. That's what happens when your defense stinks. Andy Dalton won't be the quarterback forever. Dak Prescott's coming back, as we talked about. So you mentioned Caleb Farley. That would be a huge get for the Cowboys. If he's not there, certainly Patrick Surtain would be a huge get. They're not very dissimilar in terms of playmaking abilities. Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State, He's a top 10 talent who could be there. He might fall a little bit because quarterbacks and offensive linemen get pushed up. You could even draft an offensive tackle there. They had some injury issues with Rashawn Slater along the offensive line. You could draft someone like Rashawn Slater who can play all 5 positions. And the final name up there was Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher out of Miami. He may not go that high, but should the Cowboys trade back, for example, he's a guy you could look for in the middle of the first round to shore up a defense that certainly needs to get better next season.
All right, if we're not looking at the draft, JJ, what about some free agents out there that the Cowboys could target?
Well, they're not going to have a lot of money because, again, they get no cap relief from Dak Prescott. So I'd love to sit here and tell you they could go for the top of the market corner. They very clearly need a corner over there opposite Trayvon Diggs. They're not going to have the money for it. So now you got to look down a little bit. And who's that going to be? A P.J. Williams, a Nickel Roby-Coleman? Perhaps they need a defensive tackle, and they did not figure it out last year with Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, sort of cast-offs from the Carolina Panthers. So why not get another Carolina Panthers cast-off? How about a Kawan Short, who just got released from the Panthers? Of course, they drafted Gallimore last season, but they still need a veteran presence there in the middle. And then you look at safety. Donovan Wilson has been a solid safety, but you can add a Ricardo Allen, a guy that just got released from the Atlanta Falcons, who got a lot of his money up front, who's not going to be a guy in the first wave of free agency. Again, you can throw out a whole bunch of big-time names for the Dallas Cowboys. I just have no clue where they're going to get the money to pay those guys, at least in the first wave of free agency.
And that's the issue, JJ. I mean, yeah, we could say Patrick Peterson's coming over, but Patrick Peterson ain't coming over unless you're bringing the Brinks truck with you. And Jerry Jones has made it clear with Dak Prescott that he's going to, pinch some pennies if he can do it. So what do they do instead? What are some other options in free agency? You mentioned a list of names that are going to be second-tier guys in terms of what they'll cost you. Some other names at cornerback, Ronald Darby, who had a really good season for Washington, sort of a guy they can get for affordable prices. Bashad Breeland is an extremely physical corner. Did he have his rough moments? Yeah, but he also made some plays for that Kansas City Chiefs defense that was surprisingly good. Carl Lawson was one of the few bright spots in a disappointing Bengals season that started with Joe Burrow's injury, of course, but that defense got better in part because of Carl Lawson. And Taylor Moton was an under-the-radar, really good player for the Carolina Panthers. And if you want to spend a little money to upgrade the offensive line, that may also be a direction you might think about going in.
All right, I want to talk about expectations for the Cowboys going into this season because there were high hopes going into last season. I feel like for a lot of Cowboys fans, it's like that every year, and then their hopes and dreams are absolutely crushed. So they have not been to the Super Bowl in 25 years. That was pretty much it for them. They've not made it out of the divisional round since then. Ryan Wilson, we'll start with you. Give me your expectations for the Cowboys heading into next season.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, Amanda, because I'm the idiot that said after Dak Prescott got an injury that there's a path for 9-7 with Andy Dalton, and that blew up in my face worse than anything, probably the tattoo conversation included. So thankfully, Andy Dalton won't be the quarterback. But you feel like in this division, which is a truly terrible division based on what we saw last year, that the Cowboys are among the favorites. They might even be the favorite. And yeah, they won 6 games last year. Can they get to 8 or 9 wins with a healthy Dak Prescott? That certainly seems reasonable, especially if they're able to draft some defensive help. So I'm going to say 9 wins feels doable. And if you win 9 games in a division that has a ton of upheaval with the other 3 teams, I think you're in the mix to earn that division title and host a playoff game.
Yeah, so long as Dak Prescott is healthy, 8-8 is their floor. And so, they still, they have holes on their roster. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to fill some of those holes, but they still have the most talented quarterback in the division. And really, short of Washington trading for Deshaun Watson, which they probably will not, they will continue to have the best quarterback in the division. So that gets you a long way. Their ceiling, 10.5 wins, so somewhere in there. Ryan, you talk about 9-7. I could see a 10-6 and really a best case scenario where they stand right now at the start of free agency. So I'd be okay with that. I'm okay with saying that they're the front runners of the NFC East right now, with plenty left to play out. And that is all hinging, of course, on the health of Dak Prescott. I believe he will return as a healthy starter for the Cowboys, and he again is the best quarterback in the NFC East by far.
JJ, really quickly, let's talk about Mike McCarthy. Had his first season there with the Cowboys last season. Great his last season, and what changes you would like to see him make heading into this next one?
Yeah, it was poor before Dak's injury. and I would give him about a C there. And then listen, when the guy who is going to run your offense goes down and you replace him with a veteran quarterback who, once he got in there, acted like he didn't know what was going on, that's really hard. And I do place a lot of that midseason lull a little bit on Andy Dalton. Listen, they did have the talent to win a historically bad division, and they didn't get it done. So blame goes all around, but Mike McCarthy entrusted the defense to the wrong person, really kind of fell in love with himself and whatever he decided to come up with in his garage in his year off from football. I think he should have listened to some others there. So, yeah, I'd say he got a failing grade from me in his first year.
And for the outlook for the Cowboys from both of you, I'm going to give it maybe like a C minus or something. Not so great, but just sort of average there for the Cowboys heading into the 2021 season from Brian Wilson and Jonathan Jones. All right, we are doing upcoming off-season outlooks for every single team. Coming up next, we have the Giants, 49ers, Chargers, Vikings, Patriots, Cardinals. You can see the list there. Make sure to tune in every single day. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.